You're listening to the Whole Hog Sports Podcast. And now, here's your host, Matt Jones.
You know, I think some of the basketball games that I've enjoyed going to most at Bud Walton Arena have been on these days where there's snowy weather outside and it just gets chaotic. I mean, it's, the parking lots are kind of open to everybody, and you might have 25 parking spots in a lot that are covered in snow, and you might drive across the gardens on frozen ground, and so we may have something like that Saturday night based on the forecast that we're seeing here for Fayetteville.
By the way, an igloo and camp out.
You probably could. You probably could. Now, it's not just the snow; it's the
yeah. But
temperature.
That's what the igloo's for.
I don't know if it's gonna give you enough heat.
But there's a way. I watch these like nature videos and
By the way, lock back into basketball, Anthony. This is going to be our last show of the week. We're not going to have one tomorrow, so we're going to preview this game with LSU today. Arkansas are going to play the Tigers at 7:30 on Saturday night. SEC Network will televise this game. And for people who are wondering, we don't expect that this game time is going to get changed. I mean, I have covered the Razorbacks for over 20 years, and I can only think of one time that a basketball game got changed due to weather, and that wasn't even here in Fayetteville. That was a game, I think it was during the John Pelfrey years. They were supposed to play at Ole Miss on a Saturday night. I can't remember if the weather was bad here or if it was bad there, but basically they said, let's push this to Sunday. It'll be a little bit easier to travel that day, and so they did. We get one or two of these a year here in Fayetteville, it seems like, where there's a lot of snow on the ground and a lot of people can't come, and I don't know that they, I'm sure they check the tickets, but, they might wave a couple of people by and say, hey, you're in the area, come on in.
Hey, you.
They invite everybody.
Come watch some basketball.
They invite everybody in the upper deck to come down and fill the lower bowl. And those are always fun games. Going back to what I was saying a second ago, I remember 20 years ago, they played Florida. And Florida was number 10. This was the first of back-to-back national championship teams for Florida.
Oh, the Billy Donovan
everybody
teams,
knew that Florida was good.
Noah, yeah.
Everybody knew that Florida was good, but they didn't know how good. You're right. Joakim Noah, Al Horford, Corey Brewer was on that team.
Was loaded.
And they were good for a couple of years. And they came in here, and Ronnie Brewer and Jonathan Modica and that group, they played a great game, went to overtime. I think Ronnie Brewer might have hit a layup late in regulation or late in overtime that ended up kind of being the game winner. And Arkansas beat Florida, number 10 team, and the only people who were there were students. I mean, you had some people here in town who got there, but it was mostly just, hey, students, if you're on campus, come on down, come try to fill this arena up. And I think that's going to be kind of what you see on Saturday. I mean, I've been kind of, listen to, looking at the ticket market. Obviously, we've got a message board on our website, and from the sounds of it, this is going to be one of those, based on if the forecast is correct, that there just probably aren't going to be a whole lot of people that want to get out and brave the elements and come watch this in person.
Yeah, no, I mean, understandably, like, be safe. Don't risk your life for basketball.
Well, John Calipari even put a video out today, kind of encouraging fans, hey, if you can't use them, send them to this ticket giveaway or give back program, and
then they're gonna distribute them to students or something like that. Yeah, so I saw that, but don't.
Hey, good for him. Yeah. Like getting out there 48, 60 hours ahead of time, and kind of making people aware. Hey, this is going to happen, but we don't want to play in an empty basketball arena against an SEC team, no matter how bad they are.
No matter how.
It's a bad team too, right?
They do kind of. So far in SEC play stink, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you don't want to, go into it and play in front of an empty arena. So I mean, getting tickets to, obviously the students are on campus, so they can walk there. And I mean, it'll probably be a kind of a trudge more than a walk, I guess, because of the snow. I think every time it snowed since I've moved here, it all just kind of comes down all at once.
Yeah.
Whereas being up from the St. Louis area kind of disperses throughout the year. Like you get 5 inches here, 6 inches here. Here it's 20.
Well, we've never gotten the biggest one I could remember, and I couldn't even tell you how many inches we got, but it was well over a foot. It would have been about 15 years ago. I'm 6'2", and I'm walking in it, and it's up to my knees. But it's
brag
up to my
about
knees.
the height, why don't you?
It's up to my knees. Okay,
That's a lot of snow.
I'd be short on this Razorback basketball team, by the way. But it's up to my knees, so well over a foot of snow.
That's
during
a lot
that
of
one.
snow.
But for the most part, you get. God, 2 inches will shut the schools down here. But we think that this one, according to the Weather Service, 8 to 12 inches is what they're expecting.
That's a lot of snow
in our area, and then obviously really, really cold,
really bad
temperatures.
And then really bad
Potential ice
at
some point. There's I don't know where the line of demarcation is in Arkansas, but they're talking about ice in the southern part of the state. So these weekend crowds, a lot of times you get people from Little Rock and from Hot Springs or wherever, and they want to come up to these games. You're certainly not going to be getting a whole lot of that, if any, this week.
Be safe, be mindful, and all that. You're 6'2", huh?
I've got my cowboy boots on. I might be about 6'3" today.
Oh, when I was getting my physical done for my going into my freshman year of high school to play soccer, they told me I was like 5'6" at the time. They're like, "Yeah, you're probably end up growing to be about 6 foot." I was so excited. I went home that day. I created myself on FIFA, 6 foot. I turned out 5'9".
They say
that doctor should lose his medical license.
I promise we're going to talk about basketball here in just a second. My son, though, they say that a boy at 2.5 is half of his adult height, and so if that ends up holding true, he'd be about 6'6". Because they looked at him like, "Whoa, that
get him in the post."
Yeah, well, that's where he'll.
Or probably on the wing, actually.
That's where you want to be.
Post player.
Yeah. High school, you never know. All right, let's talk about this game. First off, I want to go back to what we saw a couple of nights ago with Vanderbilt in here. I'd heard all this stuff about Vanderbilt. They're undefeated. They're this. They're that. I know there had been some question about who they had actually played in the non-conference, but I think they're a good team. I don't know that they're a great team. I think what we've seen in the last week, when you talk about potential SEC championship, I think probably you discard them from that. You can't totally eliminate them from the conversation yet, but realistically, where are they going to be in 10 games? I don't think they're going to be there with Florida. I don't think they're going to be there with maybe Alabama, maybe Arkansas. But still, I think it's a good team. It's a team that's certainly going to make it to the NCAA tournament, barring something just crazy happening in conference play. And we've seen this when good teams come into Bud Walton Arena this year, whether it be Tennessee, happened to Louisville, happened to Vanderbilt. May have happened to some of these other teams that they're going to be pretty good, and we just didn't realize it at the time. They're really good in that building. This feels like the old days with Arkansas at Bud Walton, where you beat South Carolina by 34 and you're up by 43, and you're beating Vanderbilt by 31 and you end up beating them by 25, and it's the fourth largest win they've ever had over an AP top 25 opponent. I don't know if I'm going to say they're going to go undefeated at home, because I could see where you have an off shooting night and somebody comes in and they're talented and maybe they nab you, but it's hard to see them losing at home right now. And we'll see what happens with the energy in the building with LSU coming in here, and it's easy to overlook a team and maybe you don't play. I just think this has got the recipe for another blowout on Saturday night, potentially, if they're locked in.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, that Vanderbilt game, they were, to me, that was the best Arkansas has looked all season, especially relative to the competition, because, I'm still a big believer in that Vanderbilt team, given your matchup particular. I think, Ethan and I talked about that game going into it, and Vanderbilt has struggled against bigger and more athletic teams that are really physical inside, and obviously Arkansas can be that, Texas can be that, and Florida can be that, and those are the three losses. So, and then Memphis can be that as well, and Memphis brought them to overtime. So, I think that was
not a great Memphis team.
Not a good Memphis team at all. Yeah, worst Memphis team in a while. So I think that's kind of, I guess the Vanderbilt kryptonite is a big physical team, especially kind of when you're in the post. And yeah, I think that was a big part of it. And Vanderbilt also played the worst I've seen Vanderbilt play this season, which, I've tried to tune into a lot of the Vanderbilt games just because I think the offense Vanderbilt runs is just a ton of fun to watch. And I'm a big Mark Byington fan. But yeah, no, Arkansas at home this year has been, for the large part, just outstanding. You kind of take out the Winthrop and Samford games, and nothing has really been that much of a challenge. Obviously, those games ended up being more challenging than potentially, I guess, thought going into it. But I mean, you look at Winthrop, and I think that's a quad 3 win right now. So I mean, it's not like Winthrop is not Jackson State, I guess, in the grand scheme of things.
Not Southern,
but not Southern. Even though that Southern team might still challenge for the SWAC and everything like that, but yeah, and I mean, especially against upper level competition, your Louisville and obviously the SEC games as well. Arkansas has just been really good at home, and yeah, I mean, you protect home court is kind of one of the biggest things once you get into conference play. And to this point, they've done that with quite flying colors, and I'm not sure what to expect on Saturday, given the weather and everything that kind of goes into it. But obviously, you would think that they're going to be a heavy favorite over an LSU team that's really struggled of late and all that. But
you remember after the Tennessee game, you and I were talking about they got off to a bad start. They're down 7-0 against Tennessee, and I said at some point these bad starts are going to come back and bite them. Mm-hmm. And how long can they continue to keep Malik Thomas out of the starting lineup? Well, I think after it got him against Georgia, that's when the decision was made the other day to put him into the starting lineup for the Vanderbilt game. And they couldn't have started the game any better. They go on like an 11-0 run, almost right out of the gate, and it's 13-2. And
offensively,
Vanderbilt,
defensively, both just look great. Yeah.
Vanderbilt didn't have a chance after the way the first 3 minutes of the game went. I think that what we saw in that game the other day, they're going to have to keep Thomas in the starting lineup, and have another game where you can kind of get a rotation. I know the rotation is going to change from game to game, but where you can get a rotation that's usable, and that you kind of have a feel for how to sub guys going into that road game against OU in the midweek next week. I think that what they found the other day on a number of levels with Thomas starting, I liked what they did putting DJ Wagner at the point and running Darius Acuff as the off guard whenever they were in the game together. It seemed like DJ, it's the same thing we talked about last year. Totally different player when he's running the point than when you're trying to play him as the 2 guard. And he's a better scorer when he's running the point. I thought what they did the other day from a personnel standpoint was what they need to do moving forward. Now, there may come a time where that's not working and you got to change things up again. But based on what they did to Vanderbilt the other day, I think that you got to have Malik Thomas in the game and see if you can hit LSU with that sledgehammer early like you did Vanderbilt.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably, I would agree with that, and I'm probably expecting it going into the game. And John Calipari post game after the Vanderbilt game said that he made the change in the starting lineup. Yeah, obviously, for the benefit of Malik Thomas, but more so for the benefit of DJ Wagner to get him going more. And obviously, I think that had the desired effects on both sides of that. Because, I mean, obviously, I thought Malik Thomas was really good. And he started 4 of 4 from the field, and I thought defensively he looked really good as well. Mm-hmm. And then DJ Wagner comes in. He's running the point when he's in, especially with the second unit. And I thought that was the best he's looked in quite some time. And obviously, you're going to be paying attention, to him more when he has the ball in his hand. And there have been times when playing in an off-ball role that he's done well, but I think it's unquestionable that he is better with the ball in his hands than without. And that's just the second time in his college career he's come off the bench. The other time was his freshman year against Gonzaga when he was missed the three previous games with an injury. Mm-hmm. So he's just kind of a guy who he kind of does what he's asked to do, it seems, and he just takes what comes and he does what he can with it. And you need guys like that on your team. And even then, I mean, he's still shooting a career high from the 3-point line, 35%, which you still want to see that go up, but he's still the best so far of his career. And there's other aspects of his game as well, but yeah, no. Yeah, I just kind of
when we did that midseason analysis, I think it was before they went to Ole Miss. Mm-hmm. I made a comment, and I still believe this, that there's going to be a game where DJ Wagner, you look up and he scored 15, 17, 18 points, And he did that the other night against, but they didn't need it necessarily against Vanderbilt. But there's going to be a game, I think, where you look up and he's got a stat line like that. Maybe he has 4 or 5 assists as a point guard too, and you're like, wow, that helped get you over the edge and beat this team.
Yeah, no, I could certainly see that happening, and obviously we saw that a lot last year when he took over the primary point guard role when Boogie Flam went down, and that's kind of when the turnaround happened. Is when DJ Wagner started getting the ball more.
It was necessary last year because of Boogie getting hurt. I give a lot of credit to the coaches, and we'll see if this was just a one-game aberration. I don't want to, as John Pelfrey used to say, let's put the anointing oil away right now. But we'll see if you get this same level of DJ, and I don't expect it every game, but we'll see if maybe you get better play out of him more frequently. If you do, then I think you look back at this and you say, hey, kudos to the coaching staff for not just allowing the status quo to persist, to go out and say, hey, look, there's a way. You're playing okay, but there's a way to really unlock better play in here too.
Yeah, no, it especially against Vanderbilt, I thought it was a really good adjustment. And we talk about him so much offensively. I thought he did a really nice job guarding against Duke Miles, who's been a big part of that Vanderbilt team and its offense and its defense as well. But he comes in and he's the primary ball handler for that second unit. And obviously, when he was sharing the floor with Darius Acuff, he kind of had more of the ball in his hands as well. So, yeah, it's a good adjustment for sure.
That's 2 John Pelfrey references on today's podcast. If you had that on your bingo card, congratulations.
Still coaching over at Tennessee Tech?
We want to tell you about our friends at Bentonville Glass. They're committed, professional, versatile, and they've been serving Bentonville since 1971. You can find them at 507 South Main in Bentonville or online at bentonvilleglass.com. Great quality product there at Bentonville Glass. Arkansas women's basketball in action tonight. They're going to play Georgia at Bud Walton Arena. That's going to be a 6:30 tip-off. One scheduling note just to make people aware of if they are going to this. The gymnastics meet against SEMO has been moved from a 7:15 start to a 1 o'clock start on Friday afternoon over at Bud Walton Arena. That's with the weather in mind. Of course, we don't expect any changes as of right now with the LSU basketball game or the Texas women's basketball game, which will be played Sunday at Bud Walton Arena. I know that Ethan talked to somebody at Texas today, and they said that Texas is actually coming in a day early to get ahead of these storms or of the snow, so they're going to have an extra day in Fayetteville. You look at LSU. They're 1-5 in the SEC. Their one win is over Missouri. They could easily have 2 wins. Kentucky beat them with a Christian Laettner shot about a week or so ago to win that game there in Baton Rouge. But just I don't know if I would say they're the SEC's worst team, but OU might be giving them a challenge this year, which is kind of interesting that's Arkansas's next opponent over in Norman next week. But what have you seen from LSU? Why is it not clicking for them under Matt McMahon he was so celebrated when he came there, had that success at Murray State, Coach Ja Morant. I think he even had a little bit of early success with LSU. What has regressed in that program?
Yeah, I think the first thing you look at, especially this season, is the offense just hasn't really been clicking, and in SEC play especially. They scored a lot of points in the non-conference, and a lot of those points came against Prairie View A&M and Charlton State and Alcorn State. So you get obviously the offense is clicking in those games, but then when you look at how they've played against some of the upper tier competition, they played a neutral site against Texas Tech and lost 82-58, excuse me. And then in SEC play, they gave Texas A&M a battle, and I've kind of raved about how well Texas A&M has played of late. Didn't get necessarily blown out by Vanderbilt, but still an 11-point game on the road. Should have won that Kentucky game if we're being fully honest. They kind of choked that one away, and then kind of got killed by Florida. But I just think the offense has been pretty bad defensively. They don't generate a lot of turnovers, so they don't get out in transition a ton. Not that that's really their game by any means. They play a pretty slow tempo. kind of similar to South Carolina, but not really one and the same. But they try to slow the game down and kind of try to, I guess, force you to beat them in the half court, which is similar to what South Carolina did or does, I should say. But yeah, it's just, defensively, they don't generate a lot of turnovers. They're a really pretty poor 3-point defense team as well. Going inside, teams don't really get a lot of looks at the rim. So, Arkansas is probably going to be looking to generate a lot of looks from three and from the mid-range for Darius Acuff and guys, Malik Thomas and everything, and all those guys as well. But yeah, it's just not really worked out that well. When you look at Matt McMahon's Murray State teams, especially that last one that won the NCAA tournament game, beat Todd Golden's San Francisco team in the first round, in one of the best games of that tournament, if you remember. But that offense was rated 34 in the country, and was awesome to see. And then you get to LSU, it's year 4, and the offense has only cracked the top 100 once so far. Right now they're rated number 40 in adjusted offense, so maybe it stays like that. But the defenses have been rated lower than 60 or 64 or lower so far every year, and yeah, it's just they just haven't really been able to put everything together so far, it seems. And he kind of walked into a tough situation at LSU too, because when he got hired, that was when all of the Will Wade LSU stuff was happening, and strong offers and such, which I don't know if I'm allowed to say the middle word of that.
A strong ass offer. I said it for you.
All right, there we go. Strong ass offer.
You're not going to get in trouble with your mom. Well, now you are. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mom. But yeah, so they had a lot of uncertainty kind of hovering over the program at that time. So it's a tough situation to walk into. But ever since then, it just hasn't really been all that great. They've only finished above 500 once, and that was 17 and 16. And
I said he had some early success. I remembered them being a little bit better that year. I didn't realize that ended up being their final record. They went 9-9 in the SEC that season, which a 500 record in the SEC I think is pretty respectable. I didn't realize that it was like he's on the hot seat.
Yes,
right.
Which has been pretty explicitly said by the athletics director there too. Just like I don't remember the exact phrasing that was used, but they came out and said, yeah, if they don't make the NCAA tournament, we're going to have to reevaluate.
Was this before
like
or after Brian Kelly was fired as the football coach?
It was after. This was I believe after the turn of the new year.
Okay,
if I remember correctly. So yeah, it's a
because they got the new AD as part of the whole.
Yeah, so it's a tough situation. Obviously, you don't want to see people lose their jobs and everything like that, but. It's urgent at LSU for Matt McMahon, it seems, and obviously the 1-5 start to SEC play hasn't helped. They've had some injury troubles too. Dayton Thomas was a pretty highly regarded guy coming out of the portal, and I think he only just returned for the Florida game, and Jalen Reed's missed a lot of time, and I believe he's still out, and yeah, it's just not really clicked, it seems, and yeah, it seems pretty urgent there.
Just Will Wade was way ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
way ahead of the
no, he knew what was going. He knew what was happening.
I just want you to think about like that, and him losing his job at LSU because of that.
And now you've got
Kiffin and Mulkey and
Yeah.
Jay Johnson in baseball, and
and now everything he did also is legal.
Dripping in irony.
Now everything is allowed.
By the way,
quite literally everything is allowed, it seems. So.
LSU got beat by Florida real bad the other night by 18. Is Florida, are they the team to beat now in the SEC?
Yes.
And where did that
Yeah.
maybe here's another question, a follow-up. Were they ever not the team to beat? Did we overlook Florida too much because of what happened to them early in the SEC season and in non-conference play?
I think so. Yeah. I would say yeah, definitely.
Because you think that they're going into the – I don't mean to cut you off, but you think they're going into the SEC and, well, they lost to UConn and they lost to Duke and they lost to these good teams.
Arizona.
And then they go to Mizzou and get beat and didn't look particularly good in doing it.
Yeah, that Mizzou team just refuses to decide if it wants to be good or not. It's mesmerizing to see.
But it feels like that Missouri game kind of validated the
concerns,
suspicion that we had about Florida coming out of non-conference.
Yeah, but since then,
I don't think they've lost, right?
Yeah, no, they've won 5 games in a row. Most of them, the only one that wasn't by double figures was Vanderbilt, and I mean they've just kind of been kicking the crap out of teams. And I think I said it on this podcast or some podcast. Like I'm not ready to throw in the towel on Florida just yet because I think those guards can figure it out and put it together. And they haven't been perfect by any means, but it does kind of seem like they've turned that corner. And Boogie Fland has started to play better, and Xavier Lee's started to play better. And they've always had, in my eyes, the best front court in the country, at least on paper, with the returning production that they had. Thomas Haug is looking like an All-American. And, I mean, obviously they've got Ruben Chinyelu and Alex Condon and Mecca Hanglogden, still on that team from last year's national championship team. So it was always a matter of, Florida putting it together in the backcourt. And, yeah, I mean, they're really starting to do that. I mean, Urban Klavsar's kind of come into it, and he's had a bigger role than he did last year. And, I think that's been part of it. And, yeah. No, I've always, and I think I've said it, that I still felt, yeah. You asked me if there was a team outside of the Arkansas, or Alabama, Vanderbilt, and I said Florida.
Well,
I remember that.
And we said don't sleep on Kentucky either.
Yeah,
and they're starting to kind of show.
They're starting
a little bit
to turn it around.
That's quite the little humble brag you had there too. I don't know if it was this podcast or I get invited on so many podcasts. And, everybody wants to hear my opinion.
I don't know about that.
Looking around at the SEC. Scheduled this weekend, Tennessee at Alabama. That's the game of the weekend.
That's the game of the weekend, and especially with the the Charles Bediako news.
That's right.
With all of that, and we don't have to.
We can
wax poetic.
Well,
about
we can
that,
talk more about that when Arkansas gets ready to play Alabama,
if he's allowed to play by
weeks.
that time, because the injunction or the ruling or whatever, it's like going to come like after the Tennessee game. So it's just like the temporary.
So as of right now, he can play.
Yes, and it might just be just be the Tennessee game that he's allowed to play.
And here's the thing. I don't think it matters how talented somebody is. There isn't anybody out. Maybe like an NBA All-Star can do this. They can step in and they're going to make a huge difference. I don't feel like there's anybody that's going to step in and make like this giant difference when they haven't practiced with the team and I understand the concern. I understand everything that surrounds that. The talk of should this even be permissible in college basketball? The talk about this is going to make Alabama above and beyond better. I don't know that I buy that because I still think that there's so much value in
building
being
the chemistry and all that.
having
But there is, obviously, he was, an elite rim protector when he was in college and everything along those lines.
When he was in college the first time.
Yeah. Yes.
Back when he was in college. Now that he's back.
That's what Alabama's been missing is rebounding and rim protection. So I mean, you understand why Nate Oates is I guess doing this, but we'll see if it's permissible because I mean the NCAA kind of came out and was like.
They don't want this happening, and the coaches don't want this. Like I say, the coaches. Obviously, there's Scott Drew, and there's there's Nate Oates, and I'm sure there's some others who would love to be able to bend this rule. But I think the majority of the coaches do not want to see this. And Calipari went. He wrote the editorial for the Washington Post last week that really spoke out against this and laid out some basically. It wasn't just griping that this is happening. It was, hey, this is happening, and here are some ways that you can fix it. If you haven't read that, I would certainly recommend that you do.
It's an interesting read, yeah. But it's just like, But yeah, the NCAA was like, if you signed an NBA contract, you're not getting college eligibility. Well, Charles Bediako has signed multiple NBA contracts. It wasn't just, he didn't get drafted, so it's not. James Najee at Baylor did get drafted, but he never signed an NBA contract. Charles Bediako went undrafted, but then signed NBA Exhibit 10 contracts, and if I'm not mistaken, maybe a two-way, but he's never played in the NBA, so it's an interesting case, and obviously, nobody necessarily wants to hear my opinion, but I'm very much against it.
Well, I think a lot of people would agree with that. Everybody's willing to push the limits, or there are people who want to push the limits and see how far they can change. College sports. Real quick, the other games in the SEC this week. Early games, you got Ole Miss at Kentucky. Georgia goes to Texas. Oklahoma's at Missouri. South Carolina at Texas A&M. Auburn goes to Florida. Kind of an interesting game just because Auburn does have the talent, even if they're not playing particularly well. And Vanderbilt goes to Mississippi State. Maybe that might be like, I don't know that Mississippi State beating Vanderbilt would qualify as this huge upset, but it does feel like that is upset, or that's an area where you could see the ranked team go on the road and lose that game without things have been going for Vanderbilt here lately. And you've got the they have the quick turnaround coming to Fayetteville, then they go back to Nashville, then they have to turn around and go back, now to Mississippi State. It just feels like one of those games where that's going to be tough for the road team to win.
Yeah, Mississippi State's an interesting one because it kind of seems like Josh Hubbard versus the world. And Josh Hubbard is awesome. He's one of my favorite players in college basketball to watch, and he's like my height, so it's kind of cool. I mean, and they've got Jaden Epps as well, but Chor is there too. But I mean, it really is kind of the Josh Hubbard show, and he doesn't really have much of a surrounding cast. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, they're capable of going and knocking off teams. Like they beat Texas on the road, which was a tricky place to play, as we saw with Vanderbilt going there and losing. They beat Oklahoma, which Oklahoma kind of looks like it might stink, but.
Let's put a bow on this. LSU comes here. I don't know what the betting line is. It's too early to even look. College basketball betting lines don't come out that far in advance. I'm not going to say Arkansas's got to win this by 20 to feel good, but I feel like you need to go out and if you can beat Vanderbilt like that and you can beat Tennessee like that in your home arena, you darn sure ought to be able to beat LSU pretty, not struggle with them too much at home.
Yeah, no, and I think it's important for them to go out and show the consistency they need, right? I mean, right now they're kind of in a win-loss, win-loss, win kind of pattern. So, go out and show that you've got this consistency, right? Especially against an LSU team that you are, no disrespect to LSU, fully expected to beat, right? Mm-hmm. So I think
they're going to be, I would guess, at least a 12, 13
you would think so, yeah.
favorite.
So, I mean, I think that's, it's important for Arkansas to go and show that consistency and that they, can have that consistency. So, I think that's it. I think that's a big, important aspect of the game. As for, what the matchup is, I mean, I think you're going to have to rely on the three-pointer a little bit just because LSU has done a good job of, defending the paint and doing that. But yeah, mid-range shots, which I know it analytically can be a little ambiguous. Some spots are better than others. Yeah, I think you're going to need to rely on that, especially with Darius Acuff and how just kind of good he is in the mid-range. So I think you're going to need to rely on that and the three-point line, just because LSU has not defended the three well. But it has defended the post pretty well and has kind of forced teams into more longer range twos. But Arkansas has obviously shown that it can play that way, and LSU also can get into foul trouble. So don't abandon the driving game at all. But yeah.
Again, it's going to be a 7:30 tip-off on Saturday night, SEC Network. You can read all of our coverage at wholehogsports.com. Quick reminder, no podcast tomorrow. We'll be back next week to wrap this up and look forward to that game with Oklahoma. Have a great weekend, everybody.